Hello everyone, Prophet here, and today I will be making a tier list for Genshin Impact patch 2.8. This will be a meta-oriented tier list, and with the new Dendro element that is coming after 3.0, I will be making another tier list when I get to know how does this element affect these characters and their positions or strength. First off, we have Kaeya. Kaeya I consider the best free-to-play character. Kaeya is really good cryo battery and a really nice sub DPS. Freeze teams, he's your specific options for battering Ayaka or Ganyu. He is going to be in the A tier. Oh, and as a side note, I will try to make the order matter. The only place where order won't really matter is S+ tier. Amber. Amber I consider the worst. She is not really used in any team, doesn't really provide anything specific. You could say she deals really good pyro application in short amounts of time for cryo shields, but that's not really something that it causes problems for a lot of people. Other usage are Energy for the End, for Hu Tao, VV Vape setups. I don't consider her the worst character, so she's going to be in the D tier. Albedo is quite decent if you have the event specific weapon. If you don't have the event specific weapon, he's quite mediocre. So it's hard to judge whether he's top B or A. I would give him an A tier despite all of this, but he's below Kaeya in terms of usage rate because Geo is not that good of an element, or more to say, it's rather like physical damage. It doesn't have really any reactions, and Crystallize kinda Ayaka. I consider her a really good cryo main DPS that specializes in freeze teams. Other teams she's kinda cope, but in freeze team she's very good, and if the enemy is frozeable, that's even better. For Blizzard, 40 crit rate is very broken set. She is going to be the first character that enters S tier. Barbara. Barbara is a Hydro healer that has a small amount of off-hit Hydro application. This is useful for free-to-play freeze teams with someone like Ayaka. She can hold TTDS to even buff further Ayaka, because she's a catalyst user. She's better than Amber, a tier above her, and I'm gonna put her into the B tier. Beidou. Beidou is one of those characters who is hard stepped on by the community. She's a very good electro character for AoE. Sucrose can be used to drive her burst, and overall she's quite good combo with Fischl. I consider Beidou to be rather at the top of A tier. Bennet is undeniably probably one of the best characters to have. He easily goes into S+. Not really any questions asked. I rarely see a situation where using a Bennet is not beneficial for your team. Chongyun is quite niche and quite situational for Abyss Herald shields, but it's not that useful. After Ayaka release, most people just ditched him, but he is still a 4-star that is more usable than Amber, but I don't consider Chongyun to be better than Barbara. But he's going to be in the B tier. Diluc is quite average, because there are better characters than him. It doesn't mean that he's bad, but he's quite average compared to the other characters that he competes with. He is going into the A tier below Albedo. Diona. Diona I consider essentially a better Qiqi, but Qiqi also got the clamp set, so their power level I rather became the rather same, because Qiqi can now deal damage. Not a lot, but she can still do it. Although I do consider Diona as a nice cryo battery again, like Kaeya, but with heals and a shield. A shield is rather weak. It's not that good. It's usable, but it's not like Zhongli shield. Let's get that right. She's probably B tier, above Barbara. Fischl, I consider probably the best Electro character. This is kinda hot take, but I do. In Taser, she's always there. She can be used with a lot of other characters that use a lot of auto attacks. Nice sub DPS with a good damage. And battery potential due to her energy generation. She is going into the S tier, below Ayaka, but not that far. Ganyu is quite good for AoE situations and also a very solid cryo main DPS. You could either go for Ayaka or her, and while Ayaka is better against more single target situations where there are not as much enemies, Ganyu shines against mobbing content where there are lots of enemies with lots of waves and it's ventiable. She is also a tier character, right between Fischl and Ayaka. Hutao is a very good pyramid DPS that shines against boss enemies. She's quite rewarding to play if you know how to play her. If you can pull off a lot of charge attack cancels, her DPS is going to be higher. She isn't easy to play, but if you are good at her, she's probably the best single target main DPS. She deserves to be S tier, but she's below Fisher due to her hard playstyle. Jean is probably the best standard banner characters. Now why is that? She can use 4 the sunset, she can be your healer, and there are some fire teams with Bennet and Jean where you can get a lot of pyros first. She isn't deserving S tier, but she deserves to be above Albedo. Keqing is quite lackluster standard 5-star character. She lacks damage, but she's at least cute. So I guess waifu players still enjoy playing her. But for meta reasons, she's D tier. Klee is the type of character where I would consider playing Diluc over her. It's only because she's quite clunky and her stamina costs are rather high. 50 cost for a charge attack that even Barbara has higher scalings. And that's quite funny actually. She isn't that great of a pyro DPS and can't reliably vape. She is right below Diluc. Lisa. Lisa is an interesting case. Lisa has a great use with her defense shred, and her electro AoE application is quite nice. Her energy costs aren't, but I do consider her better than Barbara, and for that she's going to be just above Barbara. Mona I consider not better than Jean, just because Mono is only really used in free teams. There are like one shots, showcases, but that's not really how meta works here. So she's quite okay. I do not consider her better than Albedo, but I do consider her better than Diluc. Ningguang is the type of character where people say she's supposed to be a 5-star, and to that I say no. She's quite bad. She lacks the type of damage that Itto does. And yeah, I know it's 4-star, 5-star, but her supposed damage isn't that good. And there aren't many synergies with her. She's quite low on the tier list, in B tier, and I do consider her worse than Diona. Noelle. Noelle is your budget Itto, and Itto isn't even that great. So if we go to Noelle, she's a tier below him. Now, essentially, it's rather spoiler, but Itto is going to be in the A tier, that's for sure. Noelle is in the B tier, but I do consider her better than Diona. That's only because she does better DPS than Ningguang, and she can be a healer shielder for you. And she allows to be swapped out even if her burst is active. Here comes Qiqi. Qiqi has gotten quite better with the clamp set, and I do consider her on par with Diona, at least. She doesn't generate particles, but she does do more damage with the help of the new healing set. She's right around the same area as Diona. Razor is a physical DPS that quite lacks the damage. You could argue you can use double Hydra and make, Razor is doing quite good. No, he doesn't contribute much to teams. He is D tier character, but I do consider her better than Keqing. Sucrose is going to be our second S plus tier character, who I consider one of the best anime characters to have. She's the very good taser driver, she's very good for international, she's very good for double swearing and go boss swearing. She's quite good, and I do recommend using her if you aren't. Childe. Childe is like a one-trick pony. He has probably the best comps in the game, that being international, with Bennet, Xiangling, Kazuha or Sucrose. But everywhere else is quite bad. So I don't know how should I rate him. In all fairness, he's definitely S tier character. But where in S tier? I have thought about it and I think I know. And it's going to be above Futao. International is quite a strong team, and I do recommend using it. Venti has that kind of problem where if he gets countered, he's quite bad, like here in the A tier. When he doesn't get countered, he's like probably the best characters to have. So I'm really contemplated where to put him. But in all fairness, I should put him at low, because recently the content is not really nice to him and there isn't many mobbing content. There are a few chambers here and there, like right now with the Ruins and Pertabis in the chamber 1 there are 23 enemies to kill, so he's quite good there. But then the second side we have a cryo hypostasis where he's just garbage. I do consider him better than Albedo, even when he's not that good. Xiangling is probably the best free-to-play characters to have. She can carry your teams with her off-field Pyro Nado. She is deserving the S tier, above everyone else so far. Xiao has that kind of problem where his best teams is actually with Xiangling and Bennet. And he's using 4 Viridescent sets with Favonius Lance, so it's quite funny because he's supposed to be our main DPS who is very selfish, who needs healing. But other than that, he's quite nice at mobbing content, but there aren't many mobbing contents anymore. He is an A tier character below Albedo. Xingqiu is going to be our third candidate for S plus tier. He is very good character. He carries the Pyro Wave characters all of in his own. National team with Xiangling, or even Hutao teams, or even Taser teams with Fischl. Xinyan lacks the damage, lacks the support capability, lacks shield strength. I do consider her worse than Keqing. Zhongli is probably the most controversial one because some people might say he's at top of S plus tier, he's quite good, he makes me invincible. That's an okay argument to make if you are a casual player. But given the fact that this is a meta tier list, I do not consider him to be S plus. He is a very solid Geo character, probably the best because he isn't tied to playing only Geo teams, and he is going to be in the A tier above G, but not really better than Kaeya or Beidou. I consider Rosaria the equivalent to Kaeya. She is going to be in the A tier, they do very similar things, cryo battery and so on. Eula is a physical main DPS character that is better than Razor, so that's something, but also isn't that really good. I do consider her about the same level as Xiao, but Xiao can have better teams due to having access to Xiangling and Bennet, so she's going to be below Xiao. Yanfei is an okay main DPS character. She just lacks the type of damage like Klee does, but even more because of 4-star scaling. So she's going to be in the B tier, but on top of B, because I do consider her better than Noelle, because she has access to Xingqiu or Yelan and can use double hydro very well. Kazuha is going to be our fourth character in the S plus tier category. He is quite a good anemo buffer. He can be also very good grouping and is quite good at double swirling with international teams, quite good for buffing Hutao teams, very good for buffing Ayaka teams, and so on. He is very versatile and that's really good about him. Previously I mentioned at Hutao that she is rewarding to play compared to the another main DPS character. This character was Yoimiya. And the reason I said that because you cannot really cancel anything at Yoimiya to make better DPS. And her DPS is also lower to begin with. I do consider her better than Diluc as main DPS. Also even better than Eula or Xiao because she can make good use of double hydro teams or has the range advantage that some people might like to have. But I do consider her not that good of a pool. She is above Xiao and Eula, not above Albedo. Xiao is essentially a worse version of Jin. She doesn't party heal, doesn't have Sunfire going for her. She is, however, better than all the characters in B tier because of the Viridescent set. And because of the Viridescent set, she sits right at the top of B. Raiden Shogun I do consider an S tier character, but I do not consider her better than the cryo characters Xiangling or Fischl. She is very good for Rational with Xiangling, Bennet and Xingqiu or Yelan, but I do not consider that more powerful than International, where Childe entirely frees up your Xingqiu, who is quite valuable if you want to play double hydro. Also there is Raiden Hyper, which is very nice for AoE, but it does require Kazuha, and I would rather play Kazuha in a freeze team or something, or International. But she's quite good still, deserving S tier, above Childe or on par, above Futao definitely, but below Fischl, Ganyu, Ayaka and Xiangling. Kujo Sara has only one use at C6, and that is being support for Raiden Hyper teams. Other than that, there is nothing she really does. For that alone, I cannot consider her above B tier. She is probably at the bottom of B tier. She just lacks versatility a lot, and that's a bad thing for a 4 star. Wu also requires C6 to even be competitive. Otherwise, in Raiden Hyper, I would rather use something like Yelan and add Electro Charge into the team, or even Fischl if you don't have Yelan. Kokomi. Kokomi has gotten quite a bit better. She probably the best for freeze teams after Shenhe release, because with Shenhe release we had a problem where our freeze teams didn't really have a healer anymore, because Shenhe switched Diona out. Now with Kokomi we get Hydro Application and also TTDS, because she uses Catalyst. For this alone, she is going to be the S tier, but at the bottom of it, I do not consider her better than all of these characters in the S tier. Aloy is our first character to enter C tier. She's quite bad, not really useful, except for maybe Cryo Battery, but like you can just use Kaeya over here, who is way better than her and also does damage. So yeah, her situation is quite unfortunate. Tomo is worse than Zhongli with his shields, but he isn't that much worse to be in the D tier, because he's way better than all the D tier characters. I do consider him above Kujosara minimum, and maybe even above Ningguang, because his shielding can be useful sometimes. Can be also used to set up VV with Hutao teams. Arataki Itto is a very solid Geomin DPS, but not as quite as meta as all the S tier characters. But I do consider him better than Yoimiya in the A tier. Problem with Goro is that he's only made for Arataki Itto teams and maybe Noelle. So judging by that, he's quite niche, but his niche is quite good. So I do consider him better than Sayu, who even has access to 4VV. Shenhe is niche to Karayu teams in the same specific way as Goro, but she has the whole element, not just defense scanning geo characters. I do consider Shenhe to be rather around the level of Kaeya and Rosaria, but a tiny bit above them due to her buffing capabilities. But she isn't quite needed to pull her over Kaeya or even Rosaria. You can get away with these two. But if you want to make your Ayaka hit very hard, then Shenhe is a very good pull. Otherwise, not really. Yunjin has that type of problem where she's only good for Yoimiya teams, but Yoimiya teams are worse than Hutao teams even with her buffs. So for that niche, I do consider her worse than Goro, but not worse than Sayu. So she's right between Goro and Sayu in the B tier. Yae Miko I consider always worse than Fischl, so S tier is immediately ruled out. I do consider her to be in A tier character, but within A tier I do not consider her better than Beidou, not even better than the cryo characters we have, but I do consider her better than Zhongli. She's quite restricted to Raiden teams, but she works quite well for Raiden teams. Ayato, I do have a very good quote for him, and it fits very well. It goes like, Ayato is like a duck, can swim, can fly, but there's always someone who does it better. He essentially loses to Childe international team if you start him, because with Kazuha in the team you cannot really double swear anymore. He is worse than Xingqiu or Yelan for single target focus teams, but he's quite okay at taser driving, but then at that point I would consider Sucrose as taser driver better than him. He's still quite a solid character that I will consider better than the cryo characters in the A team, but not really better than Beidou. Yelan is our very last 5-star Hydro character, who I will put in the S plus tier. She brought into the meta the double Hydro core with Xingqiu, and this core is quite broken and can carry almost everything in the game. Could make even a Razor look good, and that's quite fascinating to see. But this doesn't mean she's completely locked into playing with Xingqiu, because she's a very nice substitute for Xingqiu in terms of rational maybe, or even some kind of taser teams that you want to play, and you need Xingqiu for Hu Tao. And her damage is a bit higher than Xingqiu, but not by much to consider her being better than Xingqiu. And by this I mean compared to a C6 Xingqiu. Kuki Shinobu has a niche that is very new, and that is electro healing. But her electro healing is quite bad, her support capabilities are quite bad, and she's overall quite a bad character. This might change with Dentro, but I don't know how much, if it will actually. But right now, as it seems, she is worse than Sayu as a healer. Haijo is our last limited 4-star character that we received, and overall he's just worse Sucrose at every way. So for this, I do not consider him S tier. I will consider him A tier, but at near bottom, but probably better than Mona, Diluc and Klee. These are Sasuke characters, so I will not judge them. I will talk about the travelers a bit. So Geo Traveler is probably like a D tier. Doesn't do as much of a damage, and all the rock formations are pain. I cannot play Geo Traveler for my life. It's quite bad to play as. But it's better than Keqing, that's definitely sure. Now I'm talking about Anemo Traveler, and Anemo Traveler is not as bad. I consider Anemo Traveler to be at top of B tier, because there are better options, but it's quite good F2P alternative, and probably the best Traveler version we have as of now. For Electro Traveler, I do consider her also a B tier character, but not at the top, maybe around Toma level. The energy regeneration is quite funky. It can be used, but not as much. This is my tier list for 2.8. I hope you all liked watching, and please comment down below if you disagree or agree with my opinions. Have a wonderful day.